Okay, welcome everyone to this session. Super excited for this one to talk about the tracking and trading of clean power by the hour with granular certificates. So the agenda for today, I will first of all give a quick introduction to the topic and to some of the work EnergyTag is doing in this webinar series to talk about the implementation of GCs around the world. I'll then pass over to Energy Track and Trace, and then LevelTen, who'll talk about the Granular Certificate Trading Alliance, and finally we'll have a Q&A. So please do post your questions in the Q&A section of the webinar function on Zoom, and we will get to all of those questions at the end of the presentations from our guests. So just a quick one on EnergyTag, because I know we always have new people connecting from around the world. So yeah. Basically, EnergyTag is a not-for-profit about enabling granularity. We focus on standards, markets, and policy. Today, we're focusing really on the market development side of things and the set of tools we need to track and trace these granular certificates. Obviously, last month, we presented our granular certificate standard update. So that's on our website now under the standards section. And we also do a lot of work on different policy and advocacy around the world. In European Union on things like the Renewable Energy Directive and green hydrogen standards, things like the carbon border adjustment mechanism now going forward. In the US, we've been very focused on the clean hydrogen tax credit, reporting obligations for hourly matching in California, and also at a global level on things like the greenhouse gas protocol and the ISO net zero standards, which are under review at the moment. So definitely stay in touch with us and stay tuned. QR code there, links to our website. Just go to our website also at energytag.org and sign up, the big button on the top right, and you'll be on our mailing list and can follow us also on LinkedIn for regular updates. Just a quick word on the standards. We have two standards at EnergyTag, which enable the voluntary issuance and matching of granular certificates. The GC scheme standard is all about issuance, how you get these things issued and tracked. And then the matching standard is much more about how you match those GCs to consumption to prove hourly matching targets, or if you have a 24/7 goals, etc. That's more covered in the second standard, and that is the basic overall framework. So yeah, obviously there's major policy headwinds towards granularity around the world now. In the United States, we've seen recent guidance from the US Treasury requiring hourly matching for clean hydrogen production in the US. Similarly, in the EU, the Renewable Energy Directive delegated acts on renewable hydrogen, again, will require granular matching of electricity for renewable hydrogen production in Europe. In Ireland, they're going to require it for large energy users and data centers, for example. And some countries like Taiwan have had 15-minute matching already in place for a number of years. So there's definitely a strong direction of travel from policymakers towards increasing the granularity of green electricity claims. We have a spreadsheet that lists all of these regulatory updates, and we'll share that with you after the call as well. The link is at the bottom here in the slide deck that will be shared. Just an important note here, there's hundreds of terawatt hours of granularity already embedded in regulation. So there's big volumes that are locked in by these regulations around the world, presenting really exciting opportunities. And obviously tracking and tracing this stuff and getting GCs traded will be key to successful implementation of these regulations going forward. So hourly matching is happening. We have a case study section of our website that you can check out that has 23 projects. They're on 5 continents. There's over 5 terawatt hours of hourly matching already done today. They also, hourly tends to go with more deliverable and local supply as well. So all the projects are on the same grid. And there's over 40 leading organizations who are working on those projects around the world. Check them out on our website. So this is a bit of an animation showing kind of where they are and who's doing this around the world. We're always keen to add more. Just recently, we added a project, our first in Japan. So the government of Japan is working on an hourly matching initiative for distributed energy resources there. And we're always keen for more initiatives and projects to showcase what's going on around the world on this topic. So today's webinar is going to talk about 2 critical aspects of granularity. That's number 1, tracking. So having these granular certificates making sure they're issued, transferred, and ultimately retired to make granular matching claims. And the Energy Track and Trace initiative, which is basically a federation of European transmission system operators, is doing some fantastic work on this and enabling GCs in Europe. So today we're going to have representatives from EnergyNet and Elia presenting that project. And after that, we're going to talk about trading. So obviously, it's really important that these instruments can be traded on spot markets, on futures markets, etc. And so the Granular Certificate Trading Alliance, which is coordinated by LevelTen Energy, with these organizations also logos on the right there, some of the biggest suppliers and consumers in the United States. And of course, the Intercontinental Exchange, they're working on what's called the Granular Certificate Trading Alliance, which is doing some really cutting edge thinking about how these markets should be set up to trade these instruments. You know, obviously, one of these projects is in the EU, another one is in the United States. You know, I think that that's actually really important, that we're learning from each other, best practices from around the world on this topic to make this accelerate fast. And also to do this in common ways so that, you know, a buyer who might have operations in Europe and the US, for example, can basically track and trade these things in similar ways. This will also have like very major benefits for trade of green products like hydrogen, for things like a carbon border adjustment mechanism coming in Europe. Having similar and robust ways of doing granularity is going to be very, very important for voluntary markets, but also increasingly for compliance. So this is the first in a series of webinars that we're going to do on granularity in action. There's going to be plenty of future webinars covering things like, you know, utility hourly tariffs. There's been some awesome things going on around the world on that, and we'll be super excited to present those. A key use case is the storage tracking on an hourly basis. Again, some really exciting use cases that we've been involved on batteries in the US and Europe on that recently. Portfolio management, talking more about Asia Pacific, where there's a lot more activity happening on this topic. Some really interesting stuff happening in Taiwan, in Japan, in China now more and more as well. So we'll definitely cover that topic also. And also for SMEs, actually some of the more interesting things happening are happening at a smaller scale. So it's not just you know, large organizations working on this topic. It's also smaller ones as well, looking for increased transparency. Again, stay tuned by signing up to our mailing list on the website. So with that, I will stop sharing my screen and pass over to Nicholas Bernardi from EnergyNet and Marius Clem from Elia Group to discuss the Energy Track and Trace initiative. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you very much, and thank you very much for having us also here today. So my name is Nicholas Benhardi. I'm a business developer at EnergyNet Data Hub, and we've been working on granular certificates for the past few years, and we're a member of the Energy Track and Trace initiative, which is an initiative of European TSOs to work on systems for granular certificates and building registries for both the issuance and also for matching, doing things like cross-border exchange, things like that. So yeah, Energy Track and Trace is your digital proof that sustainable energy choice actually makes a difference. As I said, we are Elia Group, Ellering from Estonia, and EnergyNet from Denmark. Elia Group covers both East Germany, so 50 hertz, and Belgium, and we are here to cooperate actually, both with consumers who want to use granular certificates, but also with energy producers and suppliers who are providing the green electricity, but also with other TSOs who are interested in joining probably Energy Track and Trace, or to hear more about registries for granular certificates.
Can I interrupt you for a moment, Nicholas?
Yes, sure.
Unfortunately, we are not able to see your screen in the presenter mode. So we still see the PowerPoint only, and we were not able to see the new slides you opened. And after we prepared them that well, I think it's good to also share them.
Good that you stopped me. I will try to just share the entire screen then and see if that makes it work. So let's start again. Can you see it?
Now it looks great.
All right. So we covered this one and we covered this one. So we would like to cooperate with you out there, providing green electricity, using green electricity, or with others who would like to implement registries and issue granular certificates. Looking at the essence of energy track and trace, so what is it exactly we are doing? So we would like to create official and secure and trustworthy registries for granular certificates. These registries are based on software with open APIs, which enables both users but also service providers to interact with these systems. We are coordinating this, or we're planning to coordinate this with the existing geo team so that there is no double issuance and no double counting. And we base our granular certificates on the same data that is used for geos already today. So we're having the same data source for issuing the granular certificates. A bit more on granular certificates. I'm not quite sure how much I have to deep dive on this, but yeah, the general idea is that you use electricity when it is produced, and that you certify electricity when it is produced and when it is used. Locational matching is also important in all this. Using local products, it's not only about buying local vegetables, but it's also about using local electricity. And then the link to the current geo system, of course, is also very important in order to circumvent this double issuance. When we're looking at the energy track and trace solution, we're looking at our idea is to establish a federated network of registries throughout Europe, where we both have the issuance of granular certificates, which are issued by TSOs or geo issuing bodies as trusted partners in these networks. We use common registry software, so the idea is to already from the beginning use a common standardized set of software, so that these registries can easily interact with each other. And yeah, all this is based on a standardized and open source approach. So all this should be easy to implement. It is blockchain agnostic, so we are using blockchain technology in the background, but it is actually possible to use your own blockchain if you wish. And we are in close cooperation with EnergyTag. So again, very happy to be here today. The way all this works is actually from the outside pretty simple. We have energy producers and energy consumers. Electricity is, of course, provided through the grid. On the left-hand side, the producers then receive the granular certificates. On the right-hand side, the consumers cancel these certificates, and all this happens with our software in the registries and with the interfaces we have. So we have both the issuance, we have the managing of the granular certificates, we have the matching mechanism, and also the cancellation. So when Kilian just presented that there's two standards for both matching and issuance, we actually try to implement both in one set of software here. So we have a slightly different approach, but are still aligned with EnergyTag, since I know that these roads also can be combined in these standards. All this software has, as I said, open APIs, so energy service providers actually can implement their own solutions on top of this and can act as a third party on this. We will also connect all this to the current geo registries for those who would like to have a close connection there. all this is based on three main pillars. So we have the issuance and of the granular certificates. Here you do the onboarding of your production and consumption devices. So there will be an interface where you can log in and onboard your metering points. So your production and consumption metering points. And this is connected to trustworthy metering data, which already is used for the current geos. Then we have the registry as a single source of truth. These registries are built so that they're publicly verifiable, but still sensitive data is encrypted, so you don't publish any data here. These registries are auditable and tamper evident, and a certificate never, in our solution, never leaves a registry, but changes of ownership are managed in the wallet. So this is the third pillar. There are wallets where you keep your certificates, and these wallets are owned by the asset owner, energy suppliers, and traders. And these certificates can then be transferred between these wallets. And registry and wallets are open source software, which is developed by us. So this is also easy to implement in other countries. And yeah, the final goal is in the end to have a set of registries throughout Europe, which can easily interconnect to each other and still have like local partners who can take care of all the specificalities of the local setup. So doing interconnections to the data sources, having national login systems, and all these things. Energy Origin is then the Danish implementation of this software. So we actually already have Energy Origin up and running in Denmark. And in Energy Origin, you can log in and then you can issue granular certificates based on the data from the National Data Hub. So the National Data Hub is used for electricity billing in Denmark, but also for geo issuance, and will in the future then also be used for granular certificates. And there is full access via APIs and UI. So either you can integrate via the API, or you can just log in on the on the UI. And I put some links down here. We also have a demo site, which you can see, and a developer portal. And now I will hand over to Marius, who will take you through the solution of Elia Group.
Thanks, Nicholas. At first, hello from my side. My name is Marius. I work at Elia Group, concretely at 50 Hertz in Germany, and I'm responsible there for building up the use cases around energy track and trace as a business analyst. So what are we doing? At first, maybe for a short moment about Elia Group. Elia Group is containing two TSOs. There's Elia in Belgium and 50 Hertz, and 50 Hertz site is responsible for part of Germany. In difference to the colleagues from Energinet, the brand where we show our granular certificates is really also called Energy Track and Trace. And what are we doing? Where do we stand at the moment? We also worked as Energinet in the last years on developing our registry. And our registry is API first. So at the moment, you have especially the possibility to access our registry via API. Then you can build up interesting solutions for yourself, or you can work together with service providers to get a user interface to use it. Looking on the input data, then in Belgium as in Germany, we rely on the metering data that we get in our regulated roles. Also, we try to get solutions to get more data for complete Germany, for example, because we in Germany at 50 Hertz side, we have mostly for the part of Germany where we are responsible for at the moment. Looking beside of that at the current status, then our registry is already ready to test. Together with a service provider, we already test the registry and have around 100 pilot market locations where we can really access certificates. Right now, the first certificates are already issued. Looking around on the left-hand side, you can also see our developer portal, where we will soon add energy track and trace as a source, and you can see a little bit API documentation. If you're interested in more information afterwards, you will, I think, also get the slides, and then you can access the link down there to get more insights into this. So far from Elia Group side where we stand, but we also want to show you where we want to go as a group of TSOs with our energy track and trace initiative. At first, looking at Germany and 50 Hertz, our plan is to improve our pilot projects in Germany. We want to look on getting data access for complete Germany, and we want to connect to the GO registry we have in Germany. We are not responsible as 50 Hertz itself. It's a federal agency, but we are in contact with them. Looking on Belgium, then we also work there on getting pilot projects. We work on integrating the energy track and trace functionality also to a TSO portal, and we work on a user interface for reporting of emissions. And what we then do together as 50 Hertz and Elia, together in Elia Group, is we further develop our registry together. And we want to look there, especially on the onboarding process, to get this automated and done in a very smooth way so that we can scale a good way. Then I can tell you a little bit about what Energinet wants to do this year. At first, they are open to test, and they are working on their developer portal. They are looking on how to get the access in a good way. They are also working on an emission reporting tooling in UI and as API. And they are happy to go live this year. And looking on Estonia, on Elering at least, then we see they're working on business analysis, and they also plan to show a first product in this year. So far, that's the update on where we stand at the moment. And we are really open to get connected to you, because we see now we have a product and we want to bring it to the market. And therefore, we invite you all to get in touch with us. There are 3 pillars we can offer to you. At first, look on our website. It's brand new. Come there, look on the QR code, and visit our webpage. Also, we are building up a newsletter functionality at the moment. So if you want to be one of the first people using it, then you can go on the forms link in the middle and also register there. And then we are happy to inform you about progress via newsletter. And beside of that, we also have a LinkedIn channel where you can also follow us, and we are happy to get in connection to you. But it's not only that we want to send information to you. We're also open for your questions via email. You can see here a little bit the team that is today also here, at least partially. If you have questions to us, feel free to connect to us, and then let's find out what we can do. And we're really open to test our registries together with you. Thanks a lot for listening, and then I think I can give back to Kilian.
Yeah, thank you so much, Nicholas and Marius, for that. Yeah, obviously, I think it's super important to spread the message about this, that there's a fully developed GC registry for people to connect with right now. So definitely do get in touch with the folks at Energy Track and Trace to get going on the next generation of energy origin tracking and proving the sources of your electricity on an hourly and more local basis. Now we'll move on to the Granular Certificate Trading Alliance. Katie Soroye from LevelTen Energy, who's the Vice President there for Granular Procurement Solutions, will present that. And this is all about how we think about trading these instruments in the marketplace, which is a critical thing to build volumes. So Katie, over to you.
Great, thanks, Kilian, and thanks, Nicholas and Marius. I think before I dive in to tell you more about the work that LevelTen is doing with the Granular Certificate Trading Alliance, I think just the connection point for everybody on this call is in the US and North America, we are continuing to also work on the tracking system registry integration pieces. And I think Nicholas and Marius, you did a great job teeing up what's happening in Europe. We're going to speak to some of the pilots that we are looking to do in 2024 to get trading. And please know that we are continuing to work through many of the issues that you were talking about as well with our partners. As we dig in here, let me just give you a quick background on who LevelTen is and why we are now getting involved into this wonderful world of granular certificates. So LevelTen's mission is to accelerate the clean energy transition. So some of you may be familiar with our work around power purchase agreements, because in 2018, we launched our first marketplace for PPAs, which has now become the biggest in the world. And today that platform has expanded to include other solutions like LEAP, which is helping to accelerate the procurement of PPAs, and other innovations like tax credits. So along this journey, we've had a front row seat watching and being part of this boom in voluntary power purchase agreements. And what we've been hearing from buyers and the sellers who are serving them is that we need new tools to accelerate decarbonization and ensure accurate hourly emissions tracking and verification, which is very much why we are excited with all of the work that EnergyTag has been bringing together, because we recognize this is a huge opportunity now to provide this more granular accounting of procurement to folks. And with that in mind, that speaks to the effort that has been going on in terms of the convening of the Granular Certificate Trading Alliance. So some of you may be aware this was publicly announced in December of 2023, well before Treasury came out with 45V guidance in the US. And what this really is a tribute to is the leadership of some of the largest buyers, Google and Microsoft, and sellers, Constellation and AES, saying, let's get together and let's continue to make forward progress on the trading, tracking, and management of granular certificates. So in partnership with ICE, the Intercontinental Exchange, who operates the New York Stock Exchange, we're going to be launching this platform for the trading of granular certificates and helping to make it possible for people to execute transactions around granular certificates. We're looking to start in the US first, but we are in active conversations with our colleagues in Europe, and really excited to continue conversations with many of you who are on the phone today. So in terms of stepping back and thinking about what we are really looking to do with creating this marketplace for granular certificates, the Alliance, as it came together, identified 7 shared principles that we are using to inform our approach to market development. And if you read through these, I think for those of you who are familiar with the EnergyTag standard, they should sound quite familiar. Because very much what we are looking to do is to help effectuate the EnergyTag standard out into the world. And if I think about some of the comments that were shared around tracking from Nicholas and Marius's presentation earlier, I think one of the most important pieces in here is really captured in principle number 3 about environmental legitimacy and ensuring that as we make this transition towards granular certificates, we can do it in a way to avoid any double counting and to help ease this transition going forward. So we're really excited about the effort underway. We also recognize that this transition requires industry-wide support. And so on the left-hand side of this slide, you can see 16 different organizations who have signed on in support of the effort that we are doing. And if any of you on the call are potentially interested in signing on in support of these principles, please follow up with us afterwards. We are always excited to continue to build, even broader industry support for what we are looking to do in this transition to granular certificates. So what are we really aiming to solve here with trading for granular certificates? So I'm sure this visual is quite familiar to many of you. We recognize when we look at intermittent resources that even if we were to sign a power purchase agreement today, that's not actually meeting demand at all hours of the day. And so the opportunity that we really see with moving towards a marketplace for trading of granular certificates is making sure we've got this opportunity to redirect carbon-free energy supply to where there's those gaps, to where and when it's needed, to make sure that we are really maximizing the opportunity to decarbonize our grid. And I think one way to think about this is, this is really making sure we have the resolution to understand where these gaps exist, where we need these green blocks in the market. And so in partnership with ICE, the Alliance is looking to create this market for granular certificates so that we can bring these green blocks in, so to speak, new granular certificate supply to address where there are those gaps in the market today. And then ultimately, because we are then in a world of actually being able to exchange and trade, being then in a position for people who may actually have excess carbon-free energy to be able to trade that, and folks who may have gaps, a short, that they need to meet to be in a position to be able to address that. So that is at a high level, the visual for what we are looking to create here. Let's get into the details a bit more. So when we think about what we're looking to do with a granular certificate marketplace, this is going to be something that is new. And so some of the really important and exciting work is going to be first, before auctions are actually happening, getting a sense of what is the actual expected demand that's coming into the market and sharing that information on out. Then actually having the auctions occur on ICE. And then afterwards, not just being able to settle and deliver the granular certificates in concert with the tracking systems and registries, but also being able to provide market signal reports out. So where did we have bid offers actually match for that granular certificate demand in particular blocks of time? What were the prices, that came up for those different hours, and how those different hour times were valued? And then finally, where are there actual gaps still today in terms of supply? Because we recognize that part of getting this marketplace going is creating the signals about where and when additional supply may be needed to help encourage further development to meet those needs. So in terms of how the granular certificates will be traded, we're looking to launch 2 markets in concert with ICE, and these will be quarterly auctions that will occur on ICE. The first part of this will be a forward market. So this will be looking ahead and for granular certificates that will be minted in the future. And so if you think back to the visual that we showed, this would be a case where somebody could look at their overall portfolio and say, when I bring together the power purchase agreements that I have for wind and solar, I know I have some very clear gaps and holes in my portfolio that I need to meet. And so on a forward basis, I want to go into the market and enter a longer term-ish contract to be able to meet those known gaps. So that's one part of it. And the second part is the spot market, or what we're calling the ex-post market. And that's in the case where granular certificates have already been minted. So in the case of somebody who may have a solar PPA, they might have ended up with some excess hours. This is an opportunity for them to be able to bring that into the market and to sell those long positions. Similarly, somebody might have had an hour gap here or there where they have underproduction and they need to fill. And the spot market will be the way for them to come in and be able to meet those gaps in their overall portfolio. And so in terms of the trading instruments, to just dig in a little bit further, the way we're thinking about this, and it's a little bit of an art in the science, is that the forward market will be traded in 4-hour blocks. And this is a little bit of, I would say, the Goldilocks challenge of what is granular and a greater resolution than what we have today, but also chunky enough so that we will be able to get some liquidity in the market. So essentially, what this block would be a bundling of 4 granular certificates. And then, as we mentioned with the spot market, this will truly be at that hourly level, and would be the opportunity to come in just for, in individual hour that you might need. So the idea is that these two will work hand in glove to help create new opportunities for people to more elegantly manage their goals towards meeting a 24/7 hourly goal or an emissionality goal. So if we think about how this might work in a 24-hour period, just as an example, on a forward market, you might be purchasing those blocks to cover all hours of the day, assuming that that might be something that you need. Or similarly, if you are looking for the spot market, you might be looking just for an individual hour that you need to be meeting your needs. The other piece that's important to highlight here too is that we have heard from many organizations that we really want to make sure that we also have a variety of generation types available. So the trading of granular certificates that we are working on will, in its early days, include 2 different generation types. Type 1 would be renewables or renewable charge storage. Type 2 would be nuclear and hydro, other carbon-free energy resources. We're also doing work to look at energy storage, standalone energy storage, in line with the EnergyTag standard. A little bit more work is still going to be underway as we're working through the details of how charge and discharge records will be managed. But we're also going to be really excited to be bringing standalone energy storage in shortly thereafter as another opportunity for granular certificates trading. As I mentioned, we're looking to launch this first pilot for granular certificate trading in 2024, and we'll be starting first with PJM GATS in the U.S. and then looking to expand to other areas within North America and Europe beyond. And I think very much in line with comments from Marius and Nicholas, we're really excited for the learning that's going to be generated from getting these first auctions live, and excited to share the learnings with the group on this call and beyond. So this is, if you have information, if you have questions or interested in learning more, we're excited to engage with you. Whether you'd like to sign on as a supporter, whether you may be interested in potentially participating in first auctions, we'd love to hear from you. So with that, I'm going to turn it back to Killian for Q&A.
So thank you so much, Katie, and to everyone who presented. I think it was super informative. So yeah, now we'll move to Q&A. I encourage you all who have not asked a question yet and who might have one to drop your questions into the Q&A function, and we'll take them one by one. I know a number have already been answered, so thanks very much for that. I'll get to the questions that have not been answered yet. The first one I can cover myself. So it's a question from Chris Adams. Hey Chris, how are things? So it's about sample procurement language. What type of sample procurement language is out there to be added to commercial agreements to ask for granular certificates or similar requirements, so that they can be added to tenders and similar documents? Is there any in the public domain? So actually, there's a really interesting explainer on contractual language for 24/7 that's done by the Eurelectric 24/7 Hub. And that's been put together with a lot of the organizations that actually signed these PPA agreements already with hourly language inserted in them. Also, there's been a lot of work done on this for the electrolyzer PPAs in Europe. So that's something that I'll share after. And we can provide more detail as well as EnergyTag if people have specific questions. But there already are contracts with the requisite language in there. Obviously, that will evolve over time, right? I'm not sure if anyone else wants to come in on that, or will we move to the next question? If you do, please unmute from the panelists and also chime in. Okay. The next one is it's it's from Robert Boswell. I'm not sure who this is for. Are there registries universal in terms of energy source? Does it include zero carbon sources such as nuclear? So yeah, just from an EnergyTag perspective, our standard is agnostic. So you could basically issue granular certificates for any type of energy source. Would maybe from LevelTen, would you like to talk to that, and then the ETT guys?
Sure. So I think it's a great question, because I think today typically we have been talking about renewable energy credits, which are renewable sources and defined a little bit differently, you know, state by state in terms of qualifying. One of the big pushes that we are working towards right now is making sure that we have all generation tracking available in the tracking systems and registries, so that in the case of, for example, what we're looking at for our first pilot in PJM, there are ZECs for nuclear, there are renewable energy certificates, and now we are transitioning towards a granular certificate as a common denominator underlying them.
Great. Do you want to talk about energy track and trace, maybe, Marius?
I can do. So in general, from a technical aspect, I would say it's possible. The more interesting question is, do we say on a market development thing, this is helpful to, in the end, give more money to nuclear power plants? On German side, we don't have any anymore. So at this point, it's not relevant. But looking, for example, to Belgium, they're existing. So this will be a question that will occur in the next years. But I have a personal opinion on this, but I think we don't have an opinion as a group on this. But Nicholas, correct me if I'm wrong.
No, so far we don't have any, like, we don't have an opinion on that. Also for Denmark, we never had nuclear, so that is easy in Denmark. But what is also interesting to talk about is what is happening, for example, with waste incineration, where parts of waste is actually considered as being carbon neutral, and the rest is not. We will still have to figure that out. There are, at least for Denmark, national statistics where they look at waste and figure out which part is actually organic and then carbon neutral. But we didn't implement that yet.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much for the answers there. There's a question that this is just a quick clarification one that I can probably take. When there was the discussion of the EU and Europe, are they being referenced as being the same? Regarding the UK, so obviously the UK is not in the European Union, but it is in Europe. So when we talk about the UK, there are, you know, separate regulations around hydrogen, for example, in the UK that will require hourly reporting of energy origin. So that is, you know, separate and in the UK. And I know that National Grid and some others are working on a granular certificate project in the UK, and Ofgem, the regulator there, is also looking into how they potentially evolve their system there. There's a question for Katie around the Trading Alliance. So what is the thinking behind quarterly auctions for GCs rather than a real-time market?
Yeah, great question. So I think one of the art and science pieces with the early days of getting trading going is making sure that we have an opportunity to get liquidity in the market. And so there was a lot of discussions that went into early days of like how to best set up the markets. And so we landed on quarterly as the initial starting place. And quarterly will be both how the auctions would happen and for the forward market for a length of time going for as small as a quarter up to 2 years to create some type of a longer term-ish commitment that somebody could be making to fill where there's known gaps in the portfolio. Whereas the spot market will be happening, you know, after the fact and truly at that hourly level. Killian, I think you're muted.
Sorry, great. Yeah, very clear. Thanks for that. So we have a pile of questions coming through, which is awesome. There is another one. I'm just trying to take main topics because I think you've probably covered some of them in your answer there. There's a question: are voluntary certificates acceptable for Scope 2 reporting under Greenhouse Gas Protocol or specific ESG auditors, such as the Science Based Target Initiative? So like today, obviously the Greenhouse Gas Protocol is under review. You know, as EnergyTag, obviously our view is that should go towards more granularity in the updated Greenhouse Gas Protocol standard. Like today, voluntary certificates are acceptable. So there's, you know, for example, IREX can be used for Scope 2 reporting. So that is already a precedent today. In places like Europe, you have a regulated guarantee of origin system. And, you know, over time, we hope that that becomes a granular geo system as well. Obviously, in terms of the matching and marketplaces and stuff like that for the trading of these instruments, that will largely be market driven, I would imagine. But yes, there's already, you know, acceptance of these types of certificates in those standards that are mentioned in the question. So I have another question for Katie. There's a couple of them. Does the marketplace support API implementations or only an interface that you would interact with? And the second question is about how do we contact you? But I'm sure you know, we can share the emails of everyone in the follow-up email on that one. But maybe you can take the API question.
Sure. And with the API question, I think if I'm understanding it, the question is like, how would one interact with the marketplace that we have set up? So I think that would be a question I would encourage the person to reach out directly so we can understand exactly what you're looking to do. At a high level, imagine the way we're envisioning this is people would come in to LevelTen to first, you know, indicate interest in participating in the auctions that will be happening on ICE, and settlement and delivery would be happening through the LevelTen marketplace. The actual auctions would be occurring on ICE. So I think if, depending on what people's questions and interests are around API, if somebody, for example, is managing their portfolio and figuring out what their net need is, on other interfaces, we absolutely are looking to try to ensure sort of a smooth integration, recognizing that there will be pieces people need to do before and after that they will need to be doing for managing an end-to-end experience. And we're looking to try to make that as smooth as possible.
Awesome. There's a question for the EU. I think I'll put this to Energy Track and Trace. So, you know, many EU countries are now introducing energy sharing where production and consumption are linked on a 15-minute basis. So I think the question is around like what's the difference with GCs, and is it possible or practical to link this energy sharing approach with the power sharing approach discussed in energy sharing? Any thoughts on that from you guys?
Well, this is quite new, at least in terms of national implementation. So we didn't really get around that one yet. I think from a perspective of the approach for this seems very similar. So you have some production and you send it over to somebody else, and then you track it through the grid. So in a way, this seems very similar. We get some issues, some issues around the geo coupling. So if we assume that especially smaller producers would be in these systems, I wouldn't assume that they would be part of the geo system. So this is something that we would have to look at. But probably we can also just say like we use the same approach and create some sort of a copy of the system, and then this runs side by side, or it is implemented in another way. But we didn't get there yet.
Yeah, great. Thanks. I have also actually had quite a number of conversations on this in various geographies, as people thinking about how to enable more local trading of green electricity, etc. And yeah, it seems to me actually these GC mechanisms are a perfect tool to do that, because I can't think really of a better way of ensuring that, you know, the unit of green energy is properly allocated to another consumer. I think it's probably a very suitable mechanism for that, but it's something we probably need to develop a bit more as well in our thinking, as it is quite a new topic.
And then we need an EnergyTag standard version 3, because you can't have the connection to geos.
Well, yeah, yeah. We're always happy to keep on updating as the world advances, you know. So more more work on our plate there. There's a question here about, does the EnergyTag standard allow a carbon burden in grams in a GC? So yeah, basically on a granular certificate, an optional field is to stamp the basically the production emissions factor of the energy. So let's say you produce a unit of wind energy, the direct emissions from that are 0 grams. So you can stamp that optionally on the certificate. So that is enabled. Obviously, that has to be using a kind of an accepted number for the emissions factor, but that is absolutely possible. There's a question around, are these GC trials only available for utility scale projects, or smaller DGs can play in this system using aggregation via a virtual power plant concept, for example? Does anyone want to take that one? If not, we can always mull over these and come back at a later point. Some of them are really really good questions, actually. Yeah, if no one wants to take that, I can move through. I think there's a question, probably it's going to be related to energy track and trace. So what data sources do you accept for measuring production? Do these need to be utility meters, or producer-owned devices acceptable?
Maybe I can answer. So for us, it's important to have really data that we can trust. So therefore, it's necessary to really go on the regulated data, and also have the same data source as we have at a GO system. So that's the reason why we at the moment only focus on the meters from the DSOs, and yeah, some also from the TSOs, but not that many. So these is the baseline for our registry right now.
Perfect. Thanks so much. There's a question about, is there a methodology available to assess the proportion of carbon-free energy within a green tariff at present? So it depends how you define a carbon-free energy. One thing I would say about green tariffs today, taking the European example, is that because of the way the system is set up, is that, the supplier can basically allocate green energy to you that was produced at any time of year, and from anywhere else in Europe. So in my home country of Ireland, for example, my parents' 100% renewable tariff, well, that could, in theory, come from Norwegian certificates, or certificates from Italy. And so in that way, it's probably not all that transparent to the end consumer where their electricity is coming from. And I think that's one of the big benefits of granular certificates, is that they can tell the consumer, where their energy is coming from on their local grid and in the same hour. So it does increase the transparency of green tariffs, and I think that's one of the exciting applications here. I don't know if anyone wants to touch further on that, otherwise we can move to another question. Just unmute yourselves if you do. Let's see. How do consumers determine where there is hourly gaps in their GHG coverage, i.e. when fossil generation is being delivered over the grid during the hour? Is this information provided under your platform? Is that provided in Energy Track and Trace? There's times where they're not covered by a GC?
Well, we are currently looking at the domain of carbon accounting, actually, and I think what would be a good approach would be essentially to have 3 sections in a report. So looking at a local carbon emission factor without any certificates, then looking at geos probably, and then also looking at granular certificates and for example, how much of the electricity has been matched. Because when you do it like that, then you keep things separated and you don't mix things up, and that's probably the easiest way to see, okay, where can I adjust and where can I improve, and what do I get from the grid and these things. But we're still working on these things.
But yeah, in general, it's like you have the tooling, and then you can see, okay, there I'm 100% green, and in other phases I'm not. And then you can, of course, take the residual load that you have, and then you can calculate on there. We are building up these kind of toolings, but we are not yet right there.
Yeah, and I think that's an important it's an important point. There is a lot of data. You can get data now on the hourly average grid mixes. That's pretty widely available. There's obviously folks also like electricity maps who are aggregating that data at a more global level. And ultimately, obviously, as was mentioned by Marius, the idea is to get to residual hourly mixes where you'll know you know, all of the energy that has been allocated through GCs is removed from that mix, and then the residual mix is just containing, you know, largely the fossil portion of the electricity that's remaining in the grid. There's a question for Katie. Besides hourly matching, is deliverability and locational matching embedded into GC Trading Alliance's methodology and pilot?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I think I would, in some ways, I think Killian, that question dovetails to some of the comments that you were just making, which is in the early days, we are looking with our pilot to be bringing forward GCs that are bringing together time and location information around purchases, which is something new. And I think over time, there's this ongoing question of what is the additional information that a buyer may want to bring and integrate in to understand what's the true grid decarbonization value of their procurement efforts. And I think this is sort of a first foundational tool that we are looking to continue to build on and bring additional data sources in, you know, to help people, you know, further inform how they are doing, you know, relative to the goals that they are setting for themselves. Which is another way of saying we've been talking a lot about hourly, you know, and the role of granular certificates towards the achievement of hourly goals. I think from the Alliance perspective, there's also the opportunity for granular certificates to be a foundational tool towards achieving emissionality goals and really trying to build out support for that as well.
Thank you for the clarification there. I'm just trying to see what other questions. I think we've answered a lot of them. There's a couple of clarifications that I can make, and then we'll start to wrap up because we're getting to the top of the hour. I think there was the question about you know, the importance of geolocation of generation of these tags. Just by the way, you know, today's energy attribute certificates, they have the, you know, the location of production already. So that's already kind of standard information. What isn't standard today and is more of a market design element or a carbon accounting element is you know, the boundaries tend to be quite large and don't necessarily reflect the deliverability of electricity. So that's something we obviously are looking towards. There's also a question just to clarify on private wires. You know, behind the meter, if your site is directly connected, so you're a consumer and you're directly connected to a solar panel, for example, then you don't necessarily need certificates because it's not going onto the grid, right? You know for sure that solar panel is only supplying your compressor or your factory. So there's less, these tools are really more for tracing electricity that is injected onto the grid. And on that note, I think we'll wrap up. Thank you everyone for attending in such numbers, and I know from all corners of the earth as well. So it's great to see such interest. I'd really like to thank Marius, Nicholas, and Katie as well for their fantastic presentations and taking the time to answer their questions. And huge thanks as well to Yevgenia on the EnergyTag side for, you know, organizing all of this, doing all the comms, and really getting a huge amount of registration and interest in this webinar. So thank you so much to all of those you involved. And we will see you soon. Stay tuned. We'll have a webinar in May, which will bring on more exciting projects for you to, you know, investigate and ask more questions about. So thank you so much, everyone. Have a great day. Goodbye.